Hi, I'm Rob Gethin-Smith, Principal Consultant at Equantiis. Welcome to our podcast on how we helped the Art Fund develop their data strategy.
The Art Fund has been around for 100 years. We primarily work with museums and galleries across the UK to help support them in acquiring new works of art for their collection, in touring exhibitions, in a whole raft of ways. We have a very extensive grant funding portfolio of giving money back to the sector. We have 130,000 members who have a national art pass. The cumulative profits from that go back into our grant funding program, as well as a range of philanthropists and trusts and foundations who also support our work.
I think that the primary issue is the fact that there is no sort of role that actually has ownership of data in the organization. And I think that that's sort of culminated in a number of issues, one being down to sort of income reconciliation between systems being an issue. There is no real clarity on ownership of various data sets within the organization. GDPR work was done on it, but it feels like it's on a shelf gathering dust. We don't have a sort of a live sort of data asset register. So data in general, there is no clear ownership of that, and I think that was one of the sort of issues that we've identified, and we don't have a data strategy.
We'd sort of identified, or it had been identified, and Yvonne immediately picked up on it as well when she came into the organization, that we really lacked a strategic approach to how we were managing, utilizing our data, and one that was agnostic of systems. So much of our data work revolved around individual systems rather than a holistic data strategy that, as Yvonne said, was embedded, had accountability and ownership, both within a data role or that could coordinate our data strategy across a range of teams, systems, across the organization. So it was really wanting to have a very intentional data strategy that could drive the business forward over the next 3 to 5 years. We knew that we needed to get our data house in order.
I would say that the lack of a data strategy would ultimately mean that there is a significant administrative overhead in just trying to reconcile data across the organization. It will always affect morale when people are undertaking monotonous activities that could well have been resolved with a more structured approach to the solution. So I think that in a nutshell is one of the key challenges that we have.
I'd sort of add to that and say, I think what we wanted to get away from was too much short-term siloed decision making around data, quite often a lot of firefighting and retro regret that we kind of hadn't got a more strategic approach to data before we'd made certain decisions about what we did with certain data sets in different systems. And the lack of interoperability of data was a key finding. And I think that just gave language to the thing that we all knew that we were struggling with, that there'd been too much reactive, short-term decision making that had been siloed to different systems around data. And in a way, that siloed, reactive system thinking always kept pushing out a more broader data strategy. We'll do a data strategy when we've done this system, or when we've got a better handle on this set of data, we'll then do our data model. I think it was just no more pushing the can. We're creating more problems for ourselves by doing it in this way, this piecemeal way. We need to actually have a more holistic approach. It was great that Yvonne came in and then pushed that forward. You know that weird thing that sometimes people want to make things perfect before they, isn't it? It's but like having to tidy up before the cleaner comes. Oh, well, just clean up this system and then we'll do the data strategy. And you're kind of like, well, no, really, you want the data strategy to inform the way that you're cleaning up that system. You're missing opportunities. So I think there was always that psychological thing as well.
So I went through a tendering process, contacted 3 organizations. Equantiis was one of them. Rob had worked with an organization that I had worked with, Prostate Cancer UK. My colleague there recommended Rob. You all presented RFPs, and I guess yours was the best fit out of 3, in terms of what we're looking for, the prior experience, and also cost as well. Very happy. The process was very good. It was a collaborative effort. It involved representatives across the organization. So it didn't feel like it was a process that was happening in, just one part of the organization. I felt that the approach, going through that discovery, having the discussions at different levels was really useful. And also, I think the survey was a really good way of surfacing some of the issues that might not necessarily be visible to those of us working in different areas. The discussion around data was one that I feel that we had been talking about at quite a senior level and not necessarily at sort of a hands-on type level. So the survey was a really good way of engaging with people across different levels to get a holistic view of exactly where we were, in terms of the organization's maturity around data. So I think that was particularly good. The use cases as well, I think going through that process of identifying the use cases, I think was a really good exercise as well.
It was one of those great moments when the proposal aligns with kind of the reality of then what happened, and you're very good at spelling out a process, and as Yvonne said, it was at all levels of the organization that research took place. You had a process that was clear, but it felt creative within the process. So it felt like the process really facilitated good conversations and really unearthed some of the key issues by using different techniques and tools. It's really nice when that happens, when a proposal comes in, it describes a really clear process, we have discussions about how the process is going to work, and then it actually worked like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you were quite good at steering us on how to engage internal stakeholders as well. And our director was very involved as well. So it had really good engagement at all different levels. Sometimes you can go through projects where partners have outlined a process and you just feel like you're going through their standard process. Having a really good process enabled us to kind of really understand where we were going and sort of to trust you in the process. But I would say it was a process that really facilitated the conversation. I think the use case approach was very good because our teams are very familiar with use cases as well. So they got it very quickly.
For me, the only thing is, with the use cases, I think that exercise was really good. We didn't have the luxury of time. So it would have been good to be able to explore more of the use cases that we identified. So we identified 10 or 12 and we had to whittle them down to 5. It would have been good to have had the time to actually explore and expand on some of the other use cases that we identified. I wouldn't say it's even a criticism, it's the fact that we didn't have the luxury of the time to do it. It would have been great to be able to actually have gone through all those use cases if we had that bandwidth to do so.
The most immediate benefit has been alignment, particularly senior leadership level. I think also it's massively raised the profile of data within the organization and seen it as like a key strategic tool that's to be prioritized. I would say that there's definitely a much clearer vision of how data could be used and greater alignment from director through the senior team, through the key people in Yvonne's team. So in relation to where data was before this project and where it is now, everybody's keen that Yvonne gets this person because it's sort of seen as quite a priority, and that's not always been the case. So I know Yvonne's frustrated we're not into implementation, but I do think that just through doing the project, there's now greater alignment. People have a stronger sense of priority. People are keen for Yvonne to have the resources that she needs to kind of get it sorted or get it on the right track.